Dear colleagues and friends of the Arab Forum for Environment and Development, unfortunately I cannot be with you today in Beirut, but I would like to convey via this video message my sincere happy birthday wishes for AFED for accomplishing 10 years of great work, and I would also like to provide you with a quick overview on the global status of renewable energy that REN21 is compiling in its annual Renewables Global Status Report, which provides an overview of the latest market, industry, policy and investment trends as far as renewable energy is concerned. And when we actually look at 2016, that was a year where investors were able to acquire more renewable energy capacity for less money. We have 176 countries in the world with renewable energy targets, and newly installed renewable power capacity set records in 2016 with 161 gigawatt added, increasing the total capacity by almost 9% relative to 2015. For the fifth consecutive year, investment in new renewable power capacity was roughly the double of investment in fossil fuel generating capacity and reached about $250 billion. 2016 was the third year in a row where global CO2 emissions from the energy sector remained stable, despite the 3% growth of the global economy and an increased demand for energy. So that actually shows that we are about to reach a deep decoupling of economic growth and energy demand, which is indeed very encouraging. However, we still have a situation that only about 19.3% of the world's final energy demand is provided from renewables, with the lion's share still being provided by fossil fuels. The world has committed to double the share of renewables from 18% in 2010 to roughly 36% in 2030 under the Sustainable Energy for All goals. When it comes to renewable energy champions, in terms of investment in renewables power and fuels, in annual terms, the champions read China, United States, United Kingdom, Japan and Germany. However, when we look at investment in renewable power and fuels per unit GDP, we have Bolivia, Senegal, and number 3 Jordan, Honduras and Iceland. And that shows actually that countries, emerging economies and developing countries are the ones compared to their GDP really investing most in renewables, which is a clear sign that these technologies have on the one hand reduced costs and are competitive with conventional fuels in many areas. When we look at the power sector, roughly 30% of the world's power generating capacity is renewables based and about 25% of global electricity demand. China is by now home to more than 1/4 of the world's renewable power capacity. When it comes to heating and cooling, modern renewables supply only 9% of global total heat demand. We actually had in the last year relatively low fossil fuel prices and a relative lack of policy support for heating and cooling, so that this share is only slowly increasing. As far as transport is concerned, around 4% of world road transport fuels are liquid biofuels. The majority of transport is still fossil fuel based, and we also see that electrification of transport is happening with electric vehicles rapidly increasing. So by now, I mentioned it earlier, we have 176 countries in the world with renewable policy targets, out of which 126 countries, 26 countries with policies in the power sector, 68 countries in the transport sector, and 21 countries on renewables in heating and cooling. The renewable sector is employing roughly 9.8 million people, and global investment, it was for the fifth consecutive year that investment in renewable power capacity was roughly double the investment in fossil fuel capacity. However, we see that compared to 2015, investment went down, despite the fact that the capacity went up, which is just an indication that effectively the megawatt installed was becoming cheaper. But we also see that we have some fluctuation in these investment figures. Now, they're not the same from region to region. Investment in the Middle East and Africa was down 32% to 7.7 billion. That was mainly due to the reduction in investment in South Africa and Morocco. However, the champion in the region last year was clearly Jordan, where investment increased during the year, up 148% to 1.2 billion US dollars. The majority of money is going to the solar and wind sector. Solar and wind power continue to lead for money committed during 2016, each of them accounting for roughly 47% of total investment. So nearly all of the investment is going into solar and wind, and that is of course also reflected by the capacity numbers. 75 gigawatt of solar PV was added worldwide, bringing the global solar PV capacity to a total of 303 gigawatt. And for this, China added 34.5 gigawatt alone in 2016, and the estimates for 2017 are that the additional capacity that China will add will be in the order of 50 gigawatt. So when you look at the graph, it's really an exponential growth. 55 gigawatt of wind power capacity were added, bringing the global total to 487 gigawatt. And there we see that at least 24 countries in the world met 5% or more of their annual electricity demand with wind. And there is enough global capacity to meet 4% of total electricity consumption from wind power. This year's Global Status Report has a dedicated feature which shows that it is possible to integrate high shares of variable renewables into energy systems by providing examples of a number of countries that have shares of 20 to 40% of variable renewable energy sources. And we also want to put the focus on the fact that traditional baseload generators such as coal and nuclear are beginning to lose their economic advantage, as they might not anymore be the first to dispatch energy. So we are kind of trying a bit to deconstruct the baseload myth. So in conclusion, 2016 was a record year in terms of capacity. However, what we see is that progress towards reaching the Paris Agreement goals is not fast enough. We need to have more focus on dispatchable renewable energy and flexibility options to integrate high shares of renewables. We need to shift away from baseload and make our systems more flexible. There needs to be an approach linking sectors, providing incentives for sector coupling, for linking power, heating and cooling, as well as the transport sector. And of course, in many parts of the world, still lots of people do not have access to sustainable energy, and that has to be fostered, and there needs to be more use of enabling technologies. So I think we are the first generation that has technologies at our display to really make the energy sector sustainable. And I think we are going to see in many parts of the world renewables continuing to rise. I think it's very encouraging what is happening in the Middle East, where oil producing countries focus their efforts on renewables, because I think they are also interested in harnessing the economic opportunities. And we are definitely going to see a stronger diversification in the energy sector, where renewable energy is working with fossil fuels in order to provide the energy needs of people. and we are definitely in the years to come going to see the shares of renewable energy increase most rapidly. And I think there is still a lot on all of our plates to continue in that direction, and we look forward as REN21 to continuing to collaborate closely with AFED on making sure that the energy sector of the Arab countries, but also of many other parts in the world, is becoming more and more sustainable. And with this, I would like to thank you and wish for your attention and wish you a nice day in Beirut. Thank you very much.